Hello and welcome. This is episode 88. Whoop, whoop. And we are here. We're just going to do a little follow-up combo episode today. Last episode was all about Are You Really Lost? And we've been chatting here this morning, and what we're going to talk about is what do we mean by the weeds? Our title of this podcast is Riding in the Weeds. So what is that all about? And we're going to clear that up with a little bit of a quarterly review on where's our direction, where are we going, what are we doing with this podcast, and what are we focused on individually as well. So you are here with your friends Ginny and Tash. I am Natasha, Lockey. I am a mountain bike coach who really has diverged onto the trail of performance in our life and in all areas. So what happened with me is, as I was mountain bike coaching, I realized that our mountain bike is just a metaphor for so many different things. Ginny and I would have these amazing conversations, and we realized that that's actually true for most things. So with that, I'm going to let Ginny talk about how that kind of lands with her.
Yeah, I am Ginny Branden. I'm an animal communicator and energy healer for animals and their people too. And I work with people to help strengthen their relationship with their pets and work through emotional, physical, or behavioral challenges with the relationship. And my passion is working with horses specifically. I do a lot of rehab work and very focused riding. And that's where we discovered all the connections in what we do. And the fact that almost all those lessons that we have learned, sometimes painfully, from horses and bikes also apply to life. And so that's really why we're sitting here today with you. But quarter change. Holy cow, there went quarter one of the year. So we're starting quarter two. And it seemed like a good time for some reflection and a little bit of perspective and presence with some things. So we wanted to share this conversation with you guys today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that you are listening to us on the go, but if you have a moment to either pull up your notes on your phone or pull out a note paper, I just want you to stop and think a little bit as we're going on. Where is your focus? Where are your intentions? How can you bring this into your life? And if you have friends that you think could benefit from this, please share this with them, because not only does sharing help other people, but they will feel loved. So highly encourage you to share this with somebody if you think that it will be helpful for them. And please go on to our Substack and subscribe to our channel, because that really does help us keep moving forward. So moving forward, as Ginny said, it's the second quarter, and what are we talking about when we talk about riding in the weeds? And for me, it's really about how when we get distracted, when we let ourselves be thrown off track, and Ginny was just talking about it, that resistance comes up. You set your focus, you set your intention, you decide you're going to do something, or as an Instagram reel I got sent the other day said, you decide to become completely delusional about what you and who you are in the world, and then a whole lot of resistance comes up and throws you off. If you don't stop in that moment and start asking questions, you're going to very quickly get thrown into the weeds, and then you get lost there for a while, and then you've really got to work hard to come back in. So if we can recognize the weeds, then we're able to really move out of them faster. Something I heard from a relationship coach years ago talked about the fact that in a relationship, it's not about not having the argument. In fact, the arguments are really important. What's important is, or what's indicative of the healthiness of your relationship, is how quickly the argument gets resolved. And I think that that is something that can be moved into every area of our lives. It's not that you get stuck in the weeds. It's how quickly are you able to switch that up and get yourself back on the trail and get yourself moving along. You're riding a mountain bike, there's going to be roots, there's going to be rocks, there's going to be things that are going to throw you off. And when I teach mountain biking, one of my key pieces of information that I will always give is you got to be moving. And if you are constantly adjusting your balance, then when your balance gets thrown, it's really easy to just adjust back the other way. But if you are rigid and you are stuck in a position and a belief and a way of thinking, then when you get buffeted by things, you're going to get all off of balance, and it's going to take you a moment to get back. But if you're just moving, then you just move.
Yeah. There's so many different ways that there's metaphors for all of this in life. I think after 87 other episodes on working with this theme, that I feel like we've distilled this down to a simpler idea. And that is that you have to be present with where you are. And then you have to have focus and intention. And you've got to be able to set the intention for where you want to move to. And then you have to be able to relentlessly maintain your focus on that. And what's going to happen is the weeds is anything that pulls your focus away from your intention. So that can be your nervous system trying to get back to your familiar bad feeling place, as Laura Michelle Wolf likes to say, because your default set points get really ingrained in your system. And as soon as you change your focus and have an intention to do or be something different, you're going to get pulled back. That can also be the resistance that you encounter to wanting to do something. You may want to do it a lot, really, really bad. But that resistance is going to pop up over and over and over again. That's just going to create some little thing that's going to keep you from actually accomplishing the goal. I still wrestle with this so much with so many things in my life. That's where I'm not motivated comes from. Well, yeah, that's because you're in resistance. A piece of you is resisting the thing that you have set the intention for. And the initial piece of that puzzle, though, that is the one that's so often skipped, is the presence. And it's the being okay with wherever you are starting from now. And that doesn't matter if you're on your bike, on your horse, if that's your health, your diet, your fitness, or your budget. If you can't just be okay with where you're beginning, then you won't be able to take those steps forward because you won't know even the size of the step that you need. And frequently what we do is when we're not present with where we are, we try to take this giant step that throws our nervous system into panic mode. You're like, well, I haven't ridden my bike since I was 10. I want to go ride my bike. And you try to go out for a 5-mile ride. Like, not happening, right? Your whole body is going to be like, no, we don't do this. This is not how this works. But it also doesn't matter if you're talking about your budget and you suddenly decide, oh, I'm going to stop spending money on this, and this, when you don't even know exactly where the money's going in the first place. It's going to throw your whole system into chaos at that point. So if you don't have that sort of first step of being present with wherever you are, with whatever it is you're working with, the same is true with your animals. If you're not realistic about what your relationship is and the skill level that you and your pet have now, you're not going to be able to get to the next thing. You're not going to know what you do well, because I guarantee you there are things you're already doing well. And you're also not going to know where your holes are, where the gaps are in your knowledge. And so you've got to be able to have that presence first, and then set the intention and focus, and then refocus and refocus and refocus, because that's what it is. Those are the weeds that are popping up in your life. And if you get too distracted by the weeds, you're going to go off down a trail that's not maintained and manicured, and you're going to get smacked in the face with some branches. And ask me how I know. That's what life's going to do, though. But it doesn't even matter what you're worried about. That's what I think we found most intriguing in our conversations together, was that it didn't matter what each of us was talking about, that it applied to so many other things across the board.
It's really interesting because I just came back from doing my first aid, and the wilderness first aid course is really about critical thinking. Like, you're not a doctor, so you have some basic knowledge about what can kill people, And he said when you're approaching a first aid scenario, you're like a builder who's coming in to help somebody like redesign their kitchen. And it is not that you need to know exactly what to do. It's that you need to be able to assess the situation and make decisions. And so you learn first things first. How do you approach the scene? What are you looking for? Secondly, how do you do your primary assessment? Once you've figured out what's going on, then, okay, I need to check these 3 critical things. And then once you've checked those things and you've done the necessary quick stops, like if someone's bleeding to death, you need to stop the bleeding. It's pretty basic, right? And then the third step is to do the secondary assessment. And when you're talking about anything, it's exactly the same. You've got your budget. Okay, first step, let's see what's going on here. Second step, let's stop the bleeding. Third step, let's do a head to toe and find out like what needs to happen. Is this a stable or an unstable injury? Is this life-threatening? Do we need an immediate evacuation? Or can we deal with this in the field and get this person out slowly? And it's so funny because as soon as you said budget, I was like, oh my God, that is exactly like, we need to approach this budget. It's the first step in one of my goals for this quarter. But we need to walk into this situation, first of all, completely detached.
Yes.
Second of all, with the idea of, okay, let's stop the bleeding. And thirdly, let's do a thorough assessment of all of the things that we need to treat in this moment. And like first aid, you've got certain things. It could be completely different. If somebody's having a heart attack or they're a diabetic or they've just been stung by a bee, do you really need to check and see whether they've got blood somewhere? Probably not, because they didn't have trauma. Likewise, if the person had a traumatic injury, you're dealing with the trauma. It's not so important to deal with, are you a diabetic? That's important information, but not until you deal with whatever the trauma was. And everything we do in life, that's exactly it. What is your focus? What is the intention? How do you become present? And then every time any sort of resistance comes up, asking the big questions in order to get yourself back on track, and then making a decision. Because the first thing that will kill anybody in a first aid scenario is not making a decision.
Yeah. I kind of laugh about this. Like the piece of that I really like the most, I think, is the non-judgment. We've talked about sailing examples before because I think it's so appropriate, because when you sail, you can't control the weather. Or if you're kayaking or on water, you cannot control the water. And the last thing you want to do is be like, the water's stupid because it's not going the way I want to go. I want to sail over there, and the water is not taking me over there. That is useless in a boat, right? Yeah. And yet, how many times do we do that in our own scenarios in life? The budget's the easy one because the first knee-jerk reaction is, I don't have enough money. I don't make enough money. Everything's too expensive. Yeah. And that's like the cop-out from actually taking a look and figuring out what's going on. The same could be said of fitness. The same could be said of diet. How often do we reach for those? Well, I don't have equipment. Well, the gym is too far away. The gym is too expensive. Eating quality food is too expensive, right? Those are all those knee-jerk reactions that we take that get us out of actually having perspective and presence on where are we, and then choosing our intention and choosing our focus. And like you said, it's the same in the first aid scenario. You cannot deal with everything at once. There's a protocol in first aid for what is handled by priority of the urgency in a body and keeping that body alive. And the same thing is true when it comes to any of our other situations. What is the most urgent thing that needs to be dealt with? Now that I'm off in the weeds, what's the number one thing that I need to deal with that's going to get me as close as possible to getting back on track again? And then you start to deal with some of the other periphery stuff. And when we can do all of that without the judgment of ourselves and what it means about us or what it means about our situation, It's not a moral conversation. It's a what is conversation. And if it's your budget that you're dealing with or your fitness, it is what is right now. And it means nothing about you as a human being and who you are or your worth. It's just where you are. And when you can start there, then you have a much better chance of getting through something. It's the same thing if you showed up at a trauma situation with somebody who needs first aid. You're not going to judge the situation. You know, well, that person cut that person off, and so that's really the problem. Well, they bleed out on the ground. You're not doing that, right? So if we just kick the judgment completely out of the equation and can learn to just be okay with going, yeah, man, I derailed myself and my budget this month, or I derailed my fitness goals this month, or I didn't hit any of my intentions with my pets this month. So what? Begin again. Start wherever you are. Reset your focus, reset your intention, and keep moving. And I dare say if we all were able to do that, Lord knows I'd probably hit my goals a heck of a lot faster than I do right now.
Well, it's really interesting because my second one is my body composition. And I just listened to this really good podcast. I just sent it to Ginny to listen to. Stacey Sims, she is doing amazing work for females. She's been doing really cool research and really looking at the fact that, as she said it, women are not small men. And in this podcast I was listening to, it was with Mel Robbins, but actually she's done one with the Human Show. There's a lot of places that she's been sharing this information. And one of the key things that she said that really stuck with me is that as women, we need to stop thinking about being skinny, and we need to think about our body composition. And that needs to be our number one priority, because when we are talking about being skinny, we're not worried about our muscle mass. We're not worried about whether our bones are chalk. We're not worried about whether we're getting enough calories to support our energetics on a daily basis. In fact, we start doing the opposite. We think that going for a run is going to get us to the goal. Well, yeah, you might get skinny going for a run, but at the same time, if you're not doing weights and building your muscle and your strength, that's great, you're getting skinny, but your bones are going to be chalk and you're eating that lean muscle up. And there's nothing wrong with going for a run, but when we have the wrong focus, if you then look in the mirror and you're like, I'm not skinny, I'm failing. So when your goal is body composition and to be strong, your measurement becomes different. If your goal is to be skinny, my scale needs to say 135 pounds. When I look in the mirror, there can't be a belly there. Whereas if you're looking at your body composition, it's like I couldn't do push-ups on my toes a month ago, but now I can do 15 push-ups on my toes. When I do my yoga, I can now move from upward dog to downward dog. I couldn't understand how people could have their toes flat, and I'm noticing a complete difference in the way I'm moving through my activities because of my strength. And I'm like, oh, I'm getting stronger. And now it doesn't matter if I stand on the scale and that number isn't the number I want, or I look in the mirror and the image looking back at me isn't what society tells us we need to look like, because that's not my goal. My goal is strength. My goal is not chalk. My goal is energy. And changing that focus, changing that intention actually allows us to move towards our goals in a faster way than like when you're riding your bicycle. If your goal to ride your bicycle is to keep up with Jane, and Jane has no kids and 3 cats and rides her bike every day, and you have 3 kids and 3 cats and you get to ride your bike once a week, you're not going to reach that goal. But if your goal is to get out on your bike once a week and to get better at going around corners and to have more fun when you're climbing up the hill because you feel stronger, those are measurable goals that you can actually achieve, and you're not going to hit as much resistance. Because when we're doing things that are like, what is skinny?
Yeah.
What does keeping up with Jane mean? I have a friend who tried to keep up with Jane, and her body literally does not Like, it doesn't matter. She tried everything. She did spin classes. She did clinics. She is an incredible, technical, downhill mountain biker. Incredible. However, she runs like, it doesn't matter how fit she gets. Her heart rate still accelerates ridiculously. And she could never keep up with her really, really fit, crazy fast friends. Did not matter what she did. And it was because her body didn't do that. But yet, she did other things that were just incredible. It's like, cool, now she has an e-bike. She can keep up with Jane. Jane can't keep up with her going downhill because her technical skills are like incredible, right? And it's being present with that allows you to focus on the right things and have the right intentions.
Yeah. And sometimes we do need different tools. And in that case, for her, what she needed was an e-bike to be able to manage keeping up with her friends because they were marathoners and she's a sprinter. Totally. Two totally different types of people and body structures. And so sometimes, we got to go get a different tool to accomplish what we want to be able to accomplish without a cost to us and our bodies and our mental health that is too much. That's one of the things that I think we have to stay present with is, what is this costing me to have this as a focus and a goal?
You're going to give up because you're not getting
Exactly. If you're only focused on a number on the scale, or even in your budget, if you're only focused on a certain very restrictive aspect, eventually you're going to slide off the wagon and you're going to fall right back in the weeds and get stuck there because it's unsustainable at that point. It's costing you too much energy, too much mental focus, or it's costing your body too many nutrients to be able to manage it. And so, occasionally you got to go get a different tool completely, but you also need to make sure you're present with whatever it's costing you to have that as a focus. And that's where evaluating the focus and making sure that it's actually the most useful focus in the moment. Yeah. That's like being skinny isn't a helpful focus because it's too generic. And what is it exactly? How many times do people tell stories of, I wish I was skinny if I looked like I did 10 years ago when I thought I was fat?
Legit.
I wish I had known. And it's like, hello, that means that this is not useful as a thought process or goal and focus. You need to find something that's going to have more quality for you.
Yeah.
And I can see that when I talk to people about money stuff. Money stuff is often one of those things that everybody tiptoes around. But when you start having little conversations with people, many times they aren't present with what's really happening. And they think they're doing things well, or they think they're doing fine. But when you ask a few more probing questions, you discover that it's all a house of cards.
Yeah.
And it could fall down very quickly. But yet, you also know they make several thousand, tens of thousands more than you. And I am fine with my budget being rock solid where I am, because in some ways, I get to be wealthier than other people that I know that make more than me because they don't have a handle on their budget and they don't have a grasp on where things are for themselves because they're not present with what really is happening and they aren't willing to look at the numbers closely and inspect what's going on. But I see that across the board with just about every goal that you can imagine. It applies with our pets just the same. If you're trying to work on a training goal or you're having a behavior challenge with your pet, you got to be realistic about what's going on. Is your pet getting enough exercise? Is your pet getting enough appropriate mental stimulation? Because it's not just about running the body. It's also about working the mind and the brain. And if the answer to those questions is I don't know or no, then that's probably where you need to begin.
Well, yeah, having the information so that you can make those decisions like you're talking about with your pets. And if we bring this into mountain biking, there are a lot of mountain bikers that you see that are doing crazy things on their bikes, but they don't really have the skills to do them. So like your budgeting situation, the person who's making a whole lot of money, but they don't have any, right? So it's a house of cards. It's exactly the same. If you're mountain biking and you don't have the skills to really be doing the stuff that you're doing on your bike, and you are holding on for dear life the entire time, just hoping that that next rock doesn't throw you off, versus that person that has their balance under control and they're going from side to side and they're moving. They've got their feet are flat, their heels are down, they've got a nice wedge going on, back foot's down, front foot's forward, they're strong, they're stable on their bike. They might not be riding the same crazy technical stuff that somebody else is, but they're solid and they're having a good time the entire time, and they feel in control, except for when they don't want to be, right? The budget's a good one to come back to. It's like, there are times when you have your budget and you're like, yeah, but I haven't bought myself any clothes for a while, and I know that this is going to push me to the edge, and this might not be the best thing for me to do, but I'm going to do it anyway because I know where my limits are.
Yeah.
And there is a chance that might make me like fall this month, like on your bike. I'm going to push these limits. I know that I'm capable of doing this rock drop, but there's a whole lot of variables that could go wrong, but I know I have the capacity to do it, and I know I have the skills to do it, and I'm going to push myself in order to expand. But you're doing it in such a way that it's a calculated risk.
Yeah.
It's not let's just do it anyway.
It's a risk taken with presence and awareness of your foundation.
100%. Nicely put.
And I think, when you're talking about like the bike skills, it's the foundation that allows you to do whatever it is you want to do. It's the same with the budget. You can take a calculated risk and say, I'm choosing to spend this money right now because there is a foundation there. You actually have a budget and you are aware of what's going on in the budget and the bigger picture, that this is going to put you closer to the edge at this moment, but it's also important to you. It's fun, it's bringing you joy, and it's needed on a certain level.
Yeah.
And when you don't have a foundation from where you're working from, it's really hard to make those decisions and feel good about them, even if you have intention and even if you have focus.
Yeah.
And that's where the presence is important. I think that the whole point of the presence is building the foundation. Your presence has to be on top of some kind of foundation that you're starting from in order to be able to keep building and keep adding to what you've already got. And that's the mistake I think we make so often, is we don't have a strong foundation. And I certainly know that in business. I've kind of gone like around my elbow to get to my nose running a business because I didn't learn about a lot of things in the beginning that I probably should have known about. Yeah. And sometimes that's life. Sometimes that is how you end up rolling down the trail. You know, you take a side shoot and end up in the weeds and then pop out somewhere else and discover, hey, those were all things I probably needed anyway. Which goes right back to the non-judgment. Because sometimes what you find in the weeds is useful. It might have taken you longer than if you had gone another way, but it's not something that you didn't need in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to take a moment to remind you, if this podcast you think would be helpful for someone else, if you're enjoying this, please share it with others. If you don't want to share it, write us a comment. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And please subscribe to our Substack, because we've got some really cool stuff happening in there, and we're going to be building our programs really based on this whole concept of focus, intention, presence, and the last piece, which is asking the big questions. So just to finish us up here, if you do have your note open on your phone, if you've got a piece of paper next to you, we're just going to take a moment to all of us together reflect on, it's Q2. So what are 3 things that you want to bring your focus, intention, and presence to for the next, I always get this wrong, like next 3 months of the year? 4 months? No, 3 months.
3.
Next 3 months of the year, so that when we do this again in 3 months' time and we reflect, where do you want to bring that focus to in your life? What are 3 areas that you could write down right now that you want to bring a little more awareness to? I wrote them down before. It's my budget, it's my body composition, and it's also my time management to make sure that I actually allow the time that I budget, the time to do all the things. I want to be able to get the work done on the farm so I can go mountain biking. I want to be able to spend like at least an hour a week working on my budget. So if I don't think about my time management, then the body composition is not going to happen because I'm not going to have my fitness. I'm also not going to get my budget sorted because I'm not going to take the time to do it. My dog hasn't gone for a walk with me since I've been back because I've been too tired and I haven't allowed the time. So there's this big piece for me of like bringing a big focus to arguably time management first, and then the other two are second. And just before I let Ginny talk, I just wanted to throw in one thing I heard yesterday, which I thought was really good and can be applied to absolutely anything about this conversation. And it's this girl I follow called Tasha, and she's slightly off the wall. I kind of love her. And she was talking about fitness, and she was like, not doing your workout is kind of like wearing dirty panties. Because, you know, you feel gross and you feel awkward. So find something that, and we've said this before, a non-negotiable in your life. Would you not brush your teeth? For my budget, is not doing my budget the same as not brushing my teeth, right? Is not looking at my time management the same as not washing my face at night? You know, what is that non-negotiable for you that if you don't work out every day, it's kind of like wearing dirty panties? And honestly, that one hit me quite hard because I was like, that is how I feel. When I don't work out or do a yoga routine or do something for myself before I start my day, I honestly do feel a little bit like I'm wearing dirty panties. So there's my slight off the wall from Tasha Wall quote of the day. And with that, Ginny, what are your three?
Yeah, well, I like that analogy because to me that's focus, right? Like if you're not so focused on doing something that it is that abhorrent to you to not do it, then you're not going to get anywhere, right? It has to be that much of a priority in your life that you take it that seriously. And there's a lot of things in our lives that sometimes we have to go through that thinking about it phase for a really long time before we get to the point where taking action suddenly becomes non-negotiable. I don't know how many times in my life I have shoulded myself. We tend to not like the S word here, and that's why, is because I should do this, I should do this, I should do this, and I just can't for some reason. And then something happens, and one day I'm like, okay, this is what we do now. My meditation is a great example. I'm almost up to 400 days straight again. And the last time I missed a day, I was in like 420 or 430 or something. So I've almost gotten back to where I was. And prior to that, I don't even remember how many days it had been, but I think I've only missed like 8 or 9 days in probably close to 1,000 now. And prior to that, I could not sit my butt down. I just couldn't do it. And so sometimes you just have to allow yourself to wait for that switch to flip one day and decide that you're going to be able to do it. Yeah. And so what I'm bringing into quarter 2 that I really would like to have my focus on is definitely going to the gym. We have incorporated that into our routine. We attempt 3 days a week, but we're also not beating ourselves up if we miss a day, because between his work schedule and my schedule, juggling everything I juggle, there have been some days where it was like, you know what, we're just making the choice that today is not a good day to go. There have been days where we've pushed ourselves and we've been happy we have. So being able to be non-judgmental about where we're really at and realistic about what we can do. There have also been days where we've walked in and been like, I don't think we're going to do everything we normally do. And then we do it anyway. And we're like, oh, hey, cool. So I'm really looking forward to continuing that trend into the summer. I think at this point, we've basically finished the first month. So it will be really interesting to see where we go in the next 3 months and how that just becomes even more ingrained into what we do. I am still working on my budgets as well and making sure that I'm keeping up with them. I don't feel like I am as on track with my monthly management that I have to do for my accounting as I want to be. So that is definitely a priority for me in quarter two, is making sure that I'm completely caught up from the first quarter of the year and that I have a very smooth system going forward that gets it done within the first week of every month. Because that's extra stress, right? Like when we leave those things sitting, it's just like taking up bandwidth in the brain pan, and I don't need that. I don't have bandwidth to spare. So making sure that is a priority is also a useful one for me. And then making sure I'm working my horses at bare minimum once a week, but ideally 2 to 3 times a week would be where I want to be with that. Coming into summer, that's a little bit easier of a goal just because there's a much higher likelihood that the weather will cooperate enough for me to do it. However, this week is going to be a one day because tomorrow is going to be the only nice day this week. It's gotten cold and rainy and spring is coming, which is beautiful, but it's been either wet or insanely windy. And I don't have the energy to be out in that right now. So again, the non-judgment though, that is my goal, and we're going to try and do what we can and do the best we can, and we'll see where it goes. And so I would love to have a lot more progress. We've got plans to start riding my foster horse B at the end of this month. So I've got things I really want to work on, being able to be present with where I am and what's realistic, and then focused on what's important to me so that I can get it done.
Yeah, and we're coming into spring, so you're not alone there. I think everybody's going to be feeling that, time management and being able to focus on things is really going to be the key to achieving whatever the goals are. And one of the things, there's a really great book, 10 times is easier than 2 times. And one of the things that he says in there is at the beginning of the day, or actually the day, write down the 3 things that you want to get done the next day. And then at the end of the day, you're writing down your 3 wins. So what are your goals to happen and what actually happens? And what happens over in our Substack subscription is we actually have a daily chat. And right now what we've been focusing on is at the end of the day, we pop in our 3 wins from the day. And it is huge to sit down, because some days you really honestly feel like you didn't do anything. And when you have to sit down and be present with what you did, because you're going to put it in the chat, because otherwise Ginny kicks your ass, then you actually stop and you reflect, and it's really helpful, because otherwise we set these big grandeur goals that are not really achievable in the moment, and then we feel like because we can't measure up, the judgment comes in so strong. So when you can be like, yeah, these are the 3 things I'd like to get done. Oh, these are the 3 things I actually got done, and they're just 3 little steps that you're taking towards those bigger rocks, those bigger things. And just having a daily presence towards that is huge. So if you're subscribing to our Substack, you are totally invited to be part of that daily chat. And we would just love to have you in there so that we can hold that container of accountability for the second quarter. What if in 3 months' time, you're able to look back and be like, holy shit, look at me go? Because it doesn't matter what you're working on, but having that feeling of, I do a 15-minute yoga in the evening. Like, really, how good am I going to get in 15 minutes? You know what? Over a short period of time, that is adding up, and I can see a difference and I can feel a difference. And it's that whole thing. We said it, I think we keep saying it, but you don't brush your teeth tonight, you're not going to notice. You don't do it for the next month, you're going to notice. And it's the exact same with your yoga practice or your budgeting or your biking skills or like whatever it is. I used to believe that I had to do an hour of yoga or it wouldn't count. Now I do half an hour of yoga every day. 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening. And it's counting. But when we put these blocks of like, if I don't do it like this, then it's not going to work, then we don't get anywhere. So 3 wins a day. Come join us over in Substack and join that chat. We would love to hold the container, hold the accountability. Ginny's really good at it. I sometimes forget I'm not 100%. She's 100% because she meditates every day. And I keep on having to like, I actually love Insight Timer because now they've got like, you can save your streak, and I'm like, yeah, I did do yoga yesterday. Yes, I did. Why can't I like do that today and say, yes, I did my yoga this morning. Like they're missing a feature in there, because no, I'm not doing my 5 minutes of meditation every day, but I am doing my half an hour of yoga in my 2 15-minute sessions. Which
Well, do you do Shavasana?
sometimes, a lot of the times in a 15-minute yoga, there isn't a Shavasana because...
Well, that's disappointing. That's my favorite part.
Well, I know. Well, you got to hang out for 20 minutes. You hang out, you do a 20-minute yoga, you'll get Shavasana.
Yeah.
You do a 15-minute yoga, you don't get Shavasana. So
well,
that's just it.
Throw in the 20 minutes and get your 5 minutes of meditation in with Shavasana.
Working on it one step at a time here, one step at a time. Time management. This morning, it was more important that I jumped in the shower and was on time for this. So it's funny because just to kind of finish that off, and then I'll let you close us out. But that's it too. You get new pieces of information. In the Stacey Sim podcast, she talks about how, as women, if you're working out in the morning, you need to eat your breakfast. So this is an interesting one. So I have to now make sure I get 10 grams of protein into me, or a banana or something, before I start my workout. That's easy, except I'm also trying to do a celery juice every morning before I start my day. So if you're doing a celery juice detox, you have to drink your celery juice the first thing you drink in the morning, and it needs to be 15 minutes before you have anything else. So now this makes so now I have to...
And that's where your meditation goes. It goes in the middle right there between all your other stuff.
I could totally do that. So I was talking to my husband about it. I'm like, okay, so now I make the celery juice. While I'm drinking the celery juice, I make my dog's breakfast. I make the smoothie. That takes about 15 minutes. I then drink a little bit of my smoothie, and then I do my workout. Normally what I would do is I would do the workout, then I'd do the dog's breakfast, then I'd do the smoothie. So I'm taking the same amount of time, but I've switched it up, because at first I was like, how am I going to do this? That's going to mess with everything. But by just shuffling things around, I'm able. So that's why you've got to ask questions and look at the bigger picture, because that would have been really easy for me to say, nope, that's not going to work. I'm just going to give up on the celery, or I'm just going to not do this or not do that. However, if you take that bigger view, you might just see that there is actually, like, you can just move things around. Or maybe I have to get up 15 minutes earlier. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Maybe 20 minutes, because I got to throw the 5-minute meditation on the end of my yoga.
Yeah. And I think what really is the most valuable there is just approaching it with curiosity. It's all an experiment anyway. And maybe you try it this way, eating something before your workout for a while, and then decide you don't like how it makes you feel. And if you don't like how it makes you feel, then you shouldn't do it. You need to stick with it long enough to really assess if that's accurate, because sometimes changes, period, don't feel good. But once you've done that, okay, maybe it doesn't work for you. Even those types of specific advices still don't factor in individuality. And we are all individuals, and it's up to us to figure out what exactly really works for our system. What is my system that works for me, that's going to allow me to get results in whatever my focus is? But you've got to start with building a foundation. You have to begin with being present with what does that foundation look like? Where am I beginning from? Then you have to set the intention on where you want to go and maintain your focus. And every time weeds crop up that are going to try and pull you off your track, you have to say, no, reset my focus. This is what I'm focusing on. It's a very simple formula. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it's a very simple formula. And if you can figure out where are you already doing this, because I guarantee you probably are somewhere in your life. You probably already have a number of these steps under your belt that you're confident with. So how can you take that and apply it somewhere else? That is why we started doing this podcast, is because we found that all these things we were already doing well in our lives. And now we're working on pulling all those lessons across to other things we want to be better at.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, Ginny's always about the time. This is a little longer one. We had a little bit more to say. And I'd love to say thank you for sticking with us. Please come over, subscribe, join our wins chat with us. We'd love to see you in there. I am Natasha Lockey. I am a life performance coach. that really takes most of my lessons from all of life, running businesses, being a mountain bike coach, all of the things that I've been doing, and I would love to help you. You can find me on Instagram at Betty Go Hard. You can find me on Facebook, Natasha Lockey. Substack, well, really, I'm on the Riding in the Weeds, and I'm there as Natasha Lockey as well. So come find me, and at the same time, while you're on Substack, subscribe. Did I say that enough times this time around? And
I don't know.
All right, and Judy, you can close us out.
Yeah, I'm Ginny Branden. I'm an animal communicator and energy healer for animals and their people too. If you are struggling with your relationship with your pet or are looking at behavior challenges or emotional issues that you're going through, that would be a great reason to have a session together, and I can help support you and your pet in getting back to harmony and getting to whatever goals that you have together. So you can find me on the web at soulpetconnections.com and on Substack, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube under the same handle. So thank you so much for joining us on this pretty long wild ride through the weeds today, but we hope we've given you a little bit of clarity and some ways to get back out again. So we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Have a fabulous afternoon, day, morning, wherever you're at.